The best Turkish restaurant is my residence, of course, but we are looking at possibilities of jointly producing some equipment. We are even looking at the possibility of jointly designing some equipment. Turkey, as you said, does not recognize the annexation. A friend in need is a friend indeed.
Hello world, it's Kyiv, not Kiev on the line. My name is Polina Bachuk and this is my friend and fellow Tatiana Haiduk.
And today we're hosting a very honorable guest, Mr. Ambassador of Turkey to Ukraine, Yağmur Ahmet Güldere. Mr. Ambassador, pleasure to see you in Kyiv, not Kiev.
Hello, welcome to Turkey.
Many thanks for having us, and it is indeed our great honor and pleasure to be hosted by you today. So let's get started. Let's probably start with the personal questions and the questions about living in Ukraine. So before you were appointed the ambassador of Turkey to Ukraine, did you have any stereotypes about Ukrainians or Ukraine that were dispelled later?
Well, thank you. Before being appointed as ambassador to Ukraine, I was working in Eastern Europe department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Turkey. So I was also covering Turkey's relations with Ukraine. That's why I had a chance to visit Ukraine, to see the cities, to meet with people before being appointed as ambassador. And that is why I think I didn't have any big shocks or big surprises, because I more or less was familiar with what I was going to face. But seeing for a few days and living in a country, in a city for some time are of course different. So we have new experiences during our stay here, but they are always positive, I must say.
So no stereotypes broken.
No stereotypes broken. We usually try to work without stereotypes, without prejudices, with a positive agenda.
Mm-hmm. And are there any features of characters of Ukrainians that resemble the features of characters of the Turkish citizens?
Yes, there are. There are. Now, the first one would be hospitality. Because, you probably know the characteristic feature of Turkish people. Our sea, weather, they're all nice, but without the traditional Turkish hospitality, Turkish tourism wouldn't be where it is today. I have did quite a bit of traveling in Ukraine, and wherever I went, in south, east, north, west, in all parts of Ukraine, I was met with the same hospitality. So that would be the first similarity, I would say, between our peoples, but that certainly isn't all. Another thing is the dynamism, the energy of the people. Because, Turkish people are also full of energy. They are creative, they are hardworking, and I felt the same energy in the Ukrainian cities where I went. Another similarity would be the family values. In Turkey, in our culture, family is almost holy. There's a special bond between family members. When there are difficulties faced by certain members of the family, other members immediately reach out to them. During holidays, family members visit the elder people of the family, pay their respects, and I have seen the same thing in Ukraine. That is very touching for me. And one last thing is, we as Turks, we're proud people, and we take a special pride in when we listen to our national anthem. I see the same thing in Ukraine. The Ukrainian national anthem I hear very frequently, and immediately people are looking at it and getting prouder, taller. So the same energy is there. So that would be also something I want to underline.
Let's talk about the image of Ukraine in Turkey. Is it that true that Ukraine remains a kind of blind spot for an average Turkish citizen? If that is true, what can we do to change that?
Well, I think terming Ukraine as a blind spot would be over-exaggerating it. Ukraine has been in Turkey's agenda for quite some time. But is it at the level where it should be? Definitely not. I mean, this is something which we all should be working on. But this is also, in fact, a little normal, because Ukraine became independent not so long ago. And after its independence, the people-to-people interaction between Turks and Ukrainians were limited. This is rather surprising, since we are located on the other shore of one common sea. But I mean, this is the way history goes, this is the way life goes. I am happy to see that this gap is getting smaller. Now, especially, of course, the tourism is playing a great role in raising awareness of one another. And that is something that the governments are actively supporting. You know, we have removed visas, we have even removed passports, so people can now travel with ID cards, and this is helping people connect with each other country. And this is something which will help us in this regard dramatically. Also, academically, things are improving because in the past we didn't even have one single Ukrainian language department in Turkish universities. In 2017, in Istanbul University, this was founded. Now there are other universities who are considering doing the same thing. In Ukraine, the situation is better. There is a strong tradition of Turkology, of Eastern studies, and we as embassy are supporting them. We also have a cultural center here, Yunus Emre Cultural Center, which is providing language courses, language training for Ukrainians who want to speak Turkish. And so things are improving, and I think we will be in a far better position in 5 years' time.
Good to hear.
We hope so. We know that you arrived in Ukraine, you were appointed in January 2019, and that was before the pandemics hit. So before the pandemics, you have had the opportunity to travel around Ukraine and see various places and also see the beauty of this city of Kyiv, which is not Kiev, by the way. So what are your favorite places in Ukraine or in Kyiv, and where do you love spending your spare time, if you have one?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Ukraine is not a small country. So there are lots of beautiful places, lots of beautiful cities. And one small correction, I didn't do all my traveling before the pandemic. I traveled during the pandemic as well. But as a diplomat, I will not say this city is the best, this city is the worst. Every city is unique, every city has its beauties. So wherever I go, Odessa, Lviv, Izmail, Khmelnytsky, all cities have their own identity, their people have their own vibe, and it is very rewarding for a foreigner to go there to experience that. Ukraine hosted about 300,000 Turkish tourists before the pandemic hit. This was in one single year, 300,000 Turks. So it's a respectable figure. Odessa, Lviv, in addition to Kyiv, are drawing more and more Turkish tourists every year. But these are not all. I mean, in Western Ukraine, for instance, you have military cemeteries of Ottoman soldiers dating back from First World War, the Galicia front. And we were thinking of how we can incorporate this in the program of Turkish tourists who go to Lviv, for instance. Or, we have a common history together in the southern parts of Ukraine. And we were thinking how we can put that into the agenda of Turkish tourists visiting the southern parts of the country. So lots of things to do, lots of things to see in Ukraine. I am happy to have done some of those, but there are still a lot to do. As for my spare time in Kyiv, what we are basically doing, it's an amazingly green city. So the parks are really very impressive. And my son is actually a great transport kid. So we basically just jump on a tram or on a metro, go all the way, get out, look at the place where we end up, and then we come back. And recently we started to cycle. We all have bicycles, so me, wife, and our 2 kids. We just hit the road, drive our bicycles for kilometers, sometimes going to the island through the pedestrian bridge. It's a few hours cycling. It's physically good, keeps us in better shape as well. So lots of things to do, and it's actually a great pleasure and privilege to be here.
Oh, great. I just have to use this opportunity to ask you for recommendations. Where in Kyiv to find the finest restaurants of Turkish national cuisine? Because I'm a huge fan and I need to know where Turkish ambassador eats.
Okay. Well, the best Turkish restaurant is my residence, of course. But so we may host you there some other time. But look, we have quite a few Turkish restaurants in the city. And if I say go to this restaurant, the others will be very upset. I will share with you a list of the Turkish restaurants after the program, and I can vouch that they are all very good. And some of them are still thriving despite the pandemic limitations. And I think the Turkish cuisine is very appealing for Ukrainian tourists who go to Turkey. So when they come back, they're looking for that taste. And we certainly hope that more and more Turkish restaurants will also open up. But I will share you a list after the program.
So, and also feel free to recommend to your compatriots what to do and where to eat in Kyiv.
Look, again, Kiev has lots of interesting places to see. So, I mean, one can, I guess, start from the World War II memorial, move on to Lavra, then go to the Holodomor Museum, move down to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, continue down the road, you have Mariinsky Palace and the Mariinsky Park. You can take a good panorama of the city there with the island and the pedestrian bridge. Go further down and you are getting to the Arc area with a good overlook of the Podil district. And from there you can take the pedestrian bridge, newly built, all the way to Andriiski Uzviz. And then you can move down to Podil. So that's a good 15,000 steps there. I've done it a few times. I would recommend it. And then you can, I guess, take the taxi or take something to go back to Krishatik to continue your tour, see the Maidan. As for the restaurants, I mean, all along this route, you will find plenty. And I'm sure our people already know where to eat, what to do. So this would be more or less just a part of what to do and see in Kyiv from my part.
Brilliant answer.
So now from the personal questions, we are moving to the political block.
No one said it's going to be easy.
During his office, the Ukrainian president has visited Turkey 4 times with an official visit. And this is certainly a sign of respect and much attention to the relations between Ukraine and Turkey. In his turn, the president of Turkey also paid an official visit to Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine!
So one of the key questions that is always discussed is the cooperation in the defense industry. So what should, in particular, we expect from cooperation in this field between Ukraine and Turkey?
Ukraine has a very strong defense industry infrastructure. You have well-developed capabilities in different segments of production, of design, of development. When you look at Turkey, you see a similar picture. Over the last 20 years, Turkey has made great steps in terms of developing its domestic defense industry. There are areas where Ukraine and Turkish defense industries are complementing one another in a very, let's say, competitive fashion. So in that regard, there is a good synergy between the two countries, between the two sectors. So I am happy to see that our cooperation is not just on procurement, on Turkey selling defense goods to Ukraine and Ukraine selling defense goods to Turkey. We are looking at possibilities of jointly producing some equipment. We are even looking at the possibility of jointly designing some equipment. And this cooperation also allows us to export to third countries our jointly produced common products. So I think this is a sector where we are cooperating fruitfully, but there is a big potential which we are still to activate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. While Ukraine is suffering from the military aggression from the Russian Federation, we can't simply ignore the topics of war and peace. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, in the interview, one of his latest interviews to some of the Turkish TV channels, said that official Ankara remains neutral in the conflict between Moscow and Kyiv. We are making the same call to both countries for issues to be resolved peacefully, he said. Ukraine is now creating the Crimean Platform, a multi-level communication mechanism designed to bring annexed Crimea back home to Ukraine through negotiations, through diplomacy, through engagement of international community. And given that fact that Turkey does not support in any way the annexation of Crimea, I would like to ask you, Mr. Ambassador, what role of Turkey do you and your government see in the Crimean Platform, given that fact that the issue of, for example, Crimean Tatars protection is very close to Turkey's domestic political issues?
Thank you. The Crimea Platform initiative is a more or less recent initiative proposed by Ukrainian government. As you said, it has different levels, it has different steps which it foresees, but at the time being, we are not at a level where you can say we have a very solid picture in front of us, where we have the final form of Crimea Platform initiative in its place. So that is why I think it is a bit early to say we can do this, we can do that, this will be the outcome. But nevertheless, what I can say at this stage is Turkey, as you said, does not recognize the annexation. We didn't recognize the annexation in 2014. We still do not recognize it. And as our leaders met and as reflected in the joint declarations that they produced, we will continue this policy of non-recognition, and we will be following the developments regarding this Crimea Platform initiative very closely. When it comes to Crimean Tatar issue, of course, we have up to 3 million people in Turkey who find their descendants of Crimean Tatar origin, including myself. I'm one of those. And that is why, of course, this Crimean Tatar population, Crimean Tatar Turks in Turkey, are also a factor why we are following all these very closely. And of course, Crimean Tatars here in Ukraine, some of them had to leave Crimea, came to mainland under difficult circumstances. About those, of course, we have other projects. We have projects of support on different spheres. So we are standing with Ukraine and our Crimean Tatar brothers on this difficult issue, of course.
Continuing the question about the Crimean Tatars and your support, during the last visit of President Zelensky to Turkey, the country signed an agreement about the cooperation in housing construction for the Crimean Tatars and for the displaced persons from Crimea. And this agreement, as far as we know, is going to be implemented on a free basis. But we also understand that our friendship between the two countries is based on the principle of reciprocity. And we are very grateful for the support of Ankara. But what does Ankara expect from Kyiv in return?
Look, reciprocity is indeed a very important principle in international relations. But when you look at the situation in which Crimean Tatars found themselves, we do not actually put reciprocity in this project and in many other projects. What we see is our brothers in difficult circumstances spread all over the country, and Ukrainian leadership came up with a proposal saying, we will be providing you some land, and Turkey is going to build the houses for these IDPs, internally displaced persons. So I mean, there is a saying, right? A friend in need is a friend indeed, and that is what this is all about. And it is not the only project Turkey has realized in Ukraine. The Turkish Development Agency, TİKA, it has been active in Ukraine for almost 25 years. It has realized projects worth $40 million all over the country. And these are not only projects for Turkic population of Ukraine, like Tatars, Gagauz, or Meskhetians, but these are all over Ukraine for all segments of the Ukrainian society, including, for instance, a house of geriatrics in Lviv. This is this is a two-way street, but not in terms of I do this, you do that. This is a two-way street of friendship and solidarity. So that is, I think, how I would portray this project.
I think we do value that support from Turkey.
Recently, the topic of Ukraine's accession to NATO has been dominating in Ukrainian media space, fueling by the statements of high-level officials. If Ukraine becomes a member state of NATO, isn't it the best possible scenario to our neighbor Turkey in the context of the Black Sea region security?
I usually prefer not to talk about future scenarios and this will be like this will be like that, but on more factual issues. So Turkey, as a Black Sea country, has always supported friendly relations and cooperation between countries of the Black Sea. That is why when Soviet Union dissolved, we came up with this initiative, Black Sea Economic Cooperation, so that the countries emerging from the Soviet Union and Turkey and all the Black Sea states would not be talking about their political differences, would not be talking about potential conflicts, but on economic cooperation possibilities, on how we can move on, how we can move forward, be prosper together. And that is how we look at Black Sea. We want to see, as our president said during his latest, in the press interview after the summit, we want to see Black Sea as a sea of peace and prosperity for everyone. Now, how do we get to there is a question. Many people will have different answers. We, as Turkey, have very clearly said that we support Ukraine's effort and intention to integrate itself with the transatlantic organizations, and we publicly stated that we congratulated Ukraine on getting this enhanced opportunities partner status from NATO. And the rest is a process which remains to be seen. But in principle, Turkey supports Ukraine's intention and efforts to integrate with the transatlantic organizations.
The President of Turkey announced that Turkey is going to withdraw from the convention.
What makes Ukraine an attractive place for their money?
I love the way President Zelensky puts it, kazan-kazan relation, right? Win-win. That's what we're looking at. I think the only tip I can give to Ukrainian tourists is, as I said, book now before the prices go higher.